neighborhood?
I'm part of the Kenton Business Association.
Oh, okay. Do you mind if I ask you a couple questions?
No, you can ask me some questions.
Okay. I'm Carissa Des, by the way.
Okay, I'm Terrence Moses.
Terrence Moses. So what do you think about what's going on tonight? I know that's kind of a broad question, but I usually start off with that. Like, what do you think about the protests?
Well, I think it's ridiculous. They have no real common cause. This does not support Black Lives Matter at all. This is not what we stand for. So this needs to come to a stop because rioting, tearing up people's property, all these businesses are business of people of color and black and indigenous folks. And you come down here and you destroy all of our hard work that we did to create this plaza. And then you incite violence, attack people, start fires. You're arsonists. What is your cause? What are you really doing? This is just violence for violence sake. You have no real general cause. If you really want to fight for Black Lives Matter, come join us downtown and stand downtown and let's go talk to the people that can make real change. We don't need to destroy stuff to get our point across. So let's just stop with this stuff right now.
Yeah, to be honest with you, last night I came out and filmed, and I just didn't want to be around what's going on tonight. I just wanted to take a break from it. So I went downtown, and there were some amazing speakers. And it was, yeah, I was like tearing up the whole time. So I personally enjoy that stuff too. And I'm not saying that I agree with what's happening out here or not. I'm just here to see what's happening between the cops and the protesters. And I really enjoy getting these interviews and hearing what the community has to say also. So you're totally for the protests, but you're just not for the burning and the destruction of property.
For a protest that remains calm, that has a strict and precise goal. Tearing up things and for destruction is not the way Black Lives Matter want to deal with making change. So yes, I am against what's happening as far as destruction wise. I'm for peaceful protest and assembly.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Do you have anything else that you want to say to the public?
This is generally for my white counterparts.
Okay.
Stop it. If you really want to and truly fight for injustice, police brutality, and all equal rights for BIPOC people, please stop the rioting. Please stop the destruction, and let's really sit down and talk. And I'll come meet you anywhere. We need to stop this, and we need to make real change. This is not real change. This is just destruction for destruction's sake.
I have another question for you. Do you think that there is a difference between the protests that promote Black Lives Matter protests? Do you think there's a difference between Black Lives Matter protests and protests against police brutality? Are you seeing kind of like a divide in the protests in Portland?
Yeah, there is a huge divide. The abolish police, the defund police, the attacking of police gets us nowhere. It's a true distinction between what the black people and people of color are trying to get across to our city leaders about police reform. So if we're going to make any kind of change in the police system, we have to talk to the police department, the police chiefs, and we need to really sit down and find out what the common ground is. This here, what we're doing now is not going to get us there. This is distracting us from the polls for the election that's coming up. This is distracting us from the real cause of Black Lives Matter. This is distracting us from any opportunity to create or to make real change. This is all a distraction.
Do you think that these protests would have had the same amount of traction, and do you think that they would have had the same amount of attention if there wasn't fires and some rioting at some point?
I think they would have had the same amount of attention because numbers, people, if we just come together in numbers in large quantity and we ask for what we want in a civilized manner, we can chant, we can stand our ground, we can make our voices be heard. But tearing up stuff doesn't get us any closer. It's one step forward and we take 10 steps back when we do this kind of stuff. So there's a big difference between what's going on now and what we need to be done.
Do you think that, I have one last question, do you think the police should be defunded? And by defund, I don't mean abolished, but I mean, you know, like 50% of funds go to something else. You know about,
Right.
yeah.
Me personally, I don't think they need to be defunded. I think we do need, they need to be reprioritized, retrained, and we need to allocate certain dollars to certain avenues of change.
But you don't think it should come from the police force?
I don't think taking money away from the police department isn't going to change their behavior. If there is a behavior that we want changed, taking away their money will not change it. We need to sit down with the actual leaders of the police department, aka union, and tell them and demand real change. Taking those dollars away from the police department will just strap them tighter and tighter, and for those folks who need real emergency help, we won't be able to get it because they're going to be shorthanded.
Actually, that leads me to more questions if you don't mind having more of your time. But you do believe that there should be reform with the police?
Oh yes, there's definitely needs to be reform. There's a lot that all police departments need to do to make serious change, and it's all going to be by educating themselves and training on how to tactically, safely take down an assailant that needs to be taken down. But a cop shouldn't have to be a mental health provider. They shouldn't have to be a homeless outreach person because they can't do it all. We shouldn't send officers to do jobs that health providers should be doing. So we need to revamp a whole lot of the system to make it work.
Yeah, I agree with that part for sure. Thank you so much for your time.
Thank you.
David Fredrickson.
Okay. So you were telling me that it's kind of a tricky situation, tricky topic because you're for the protests, you're for the movement, the Black Lives Matter movement and everything, but these are small businesses, a lot of black-owned, small businesses. So.
Yeah, I mean, I think the thing for me tonight in this very moment is talking to my black neighbor who lives upstairs in that building right there, and he's so upset by these protests, and he's so upset to see his neighborhood where he had coffee on the street this morning in this beautiful plaza, to see that destroyed. Yeah. And to hear him say, fuck that, I don't think that they get it, I don't think that they're, to see that upset in him makes it real hard. It's like, it's heartbreaking to see, a black man very much against the protests. So it just makes me wonder, is he not being reached in some way? Is he, is there an aspect of the protest that is, I don't know, that is missing an opportunity, like, put down the microphone and talk to this man. I don't know. I mean, I totally believe, in this revolution, and I think it's absolutely necessary, and there's going to be collateral damage, and now I've experienced it, here in my neighborhood, and that's hard. And I guess I wonder why a black man doesn't understand it. Like, what's the missing link there? What's happening? you know.
I have talked to other people of color that don't understand what is happening at these protests anymore. But then there are some that are a part of the protests as well. So, I just think that there's different opinions, and not everybody sees it the same way. But yeah, I appreciate you talking with me about this. Do you have anything else to add?
I guess I just hope we all, continue this movement and this protest with thoughtfulness, and I think any opinion can get carried away and lose perspective. I just hope we all can kind of keep looking at the big picture and keep that in mind and not lose sight of it.
So what do you think about the so do you think that the burning and the any of the violent aspects of the protests are helpful?
I don't know. I think it keeps it present in the media. It seems that we have to burn stuff and wreck stuff in order to keep it present. That's what gets news. And so I guess if that's what it takes to keep this topic in front of the public eye, then maybe it's necessary. It's I don't know. It's hard to say.
He's a wonderful guy. My name is Paul.
Your name is Paul, and
Yes.
You live in the neighborhood?
Yes, neighborhood
Okay.
fella.
And you don't own a business around here, but
No.
Okay.
No, I'm a professional engineer.
okay. So can I ask you, this is kind of like a broad question that I usually start off with, but what do you think about the protests down here?
I think protests are nice. It just depends on how they do things. If it becomes a riotous thing, if somebody, say, comes over and tries to hurt you or burn a business or stop traffic on a freeway when, there could be like emergency vehicles and things like that coming by, that's when I have a little bit of a problem with it. And I think that's most people. But, protesting is an American tradition. And I think as long as it's in reasonable taste, I think that's a good thing, because people will like them better and probably feel more in tune with what they're protesting.
Do you think that the protests would have as much visibility and attention without some of the violence in the beginning, or what do you think on that?
That's a very good question. I think there's a lot of things going on in the world where people have protested peacefully, and because they were artfully doing the protest peacefully, that it did get a lot of attention. And I think that they've done some very good things and got plenty of attention out of that. But I think public opinion will kind of slide away from feeling anything for a protest once it starts going violent, especially if very innocent people get hurt, like yourself.
Yeah. Well, the only times I've gotten hurt was when I just got shot in the butt with a pepper bullet, but it didn't hurt very much.
I'm not going to bug you about your war wounds or anything. I've got a few of my own from travels and other places.
Yeah. Let's see. Do you have anything else to say about the matter of what's happening out here?
I just hope that everybody's better angels float out on all sides of the thing. I really do feel that people as a culture, as an American experience, we need to grow together and be more peaceable and more loving and caring, and of course listening on all fronts. At the end of the day, if an asteroid comes down to hit this Earth, we're all one humanity, and I know it's kind of an old play on things, but at the end of the day, if we can't rely on each other to get through this time while we're here on the Earth, what do we have? God bless. Much love. Thank you, kind.
What's your name?
Michael.
Michael.
Yes.
So can I ask a pretty broad question? What do you think about what's happening down here with these protests?
I think the protests are fine. It's necessary and important. I think the destruction of property takes away from the actual point and what we're trying to get at. That's what I believe, and that's what I feel. So.
Do you think that the protests and the movement would have had as much visibility without the original, or like the destruction, like at the very beginning of the protest? Like,
I understand that in protests, sometimes there is destruction of property, and it's almost like a cost of doing business. So I understand that sometimes that happens, and it probably did kind of work to generate more attention. However, I think that we should stay on focus and on task of like what we're trying to achieve, what we're working towards. So we can't lose sight of those things.
have you personally gone down to any of the protests here in Portland?
I was asked to come to be a part of, I'm clergy as well, I'm a minister. So I was asked to come down to be a part of, they were asking for clergy to come down of various different faiths to just pray, to oversee. So I've been there for that. And the NAACP has been involved with some rallies and things downtown. So I've been a part of that as well. So I've been to those things.
So do you think that, the voices are more impactful for the movement than the violence and the protests that are happening, like the one tonight?
Repeat your question.
So it sounds like you think that you believe that the voices of the people, rather than the violence that's happening at some of these protests, are making a bigger impact on the movement and the overall goal of the protests.
It seems that way, that the voices are louder and making impact. However, some of those loud voices, I like to know what they're trying to say and what their end goals are, so we could reach some points of compromise and resolution.
Do you think that the protests at this point are doing any good for Black lives?
Probably 6 in one hand, half a dozen the other. So you're gonna give a little, you're gonna take a little. I think what it does good is it continues to keep why we're here in focus. However, that's something that we can't lose in translation of why we're doing all this stuff. We can't lose those things.
This is kind of a different topic, but or not completely different, but do you think the police should be defunded, or what do you think about that topic?
Defunding the police.
Not like abolish, but like 50% of their the money that they get goes to like psychiatrists, stuff like that.
I'd have to do more studying on that, because 50%, that's a lot, and we can't totally get rid of police. They do serve a purpose. They're our neighbors, they're our brothers, they're our friends. So we can't get rid of 50% of their budget. They play an important role of our society. Could there be some things done differently? Yes, of course. So I wouldn't mind being a part or hearing what those proposals are.
Do you think that there needs to be reform in with police reform?
Sure, there needs to be some reform. Accountability is always good. I think they also need some support as well in terms of like people with mental health. Oftentimes police are called out to deal with those things, and maybe there should be some other agencies that could shoulder some of the burden of those things for them, so they could take care of things that they're definitely necessary and needed for.
Yeah, I agree with that. I don't have any other questions. Do you have anything else to say on the matter, what's happening out here? One sec.
I thank everybody for protesting. I thank them for being a part. I thank them for their time, their energy. I would like us to continue to remain focused and not lose sight of what the goals are, so we can achieve some reform that is that people reform is necessary when people come together and they create compromises, they have conversations. So let's open our minds and our hearts for the conversations, even the tough ones, that we'll need to have, so we can continue to move forward to make the changes together.
I just have one more question. Do you think that, like, since these protests started, that more white people in the community have kind of opened their minds a little bit and realized that there is systemic racism?
I think some have, and that's a good thing. I also think that, you know, people just need to take a personal inventory of the things they, you know, consider what they do, what they say, and those motivations behind those things. And we can't change other people, but we can change ourselves. And in changing ourselves, that can have an impact on other people around us. So yes, I think that some white people are being challenged. With that challenge, there's pain, there's hurt, because you see parts of yourself that aren't pretty. But it's still you. People are a lot like onions. We have different layers, and sometimes, you know, they make you cry. But you can't just shrug it off because you don't like that. It's still a part of you. So, you know, just embrace it, be honest and truthful about it, and then move forward in positive ways.